Hello there. Welcome to Lunch for the Soul, everybody. I'm Melissa Wilson with Fox 26 News, and so happy to welcome you here with us today. This is a time where we can look and learn from people who might be going through a tough time, no matter what it is, but their faith gets them through the other side of it, and so many times in a much better place in this life. And that is certainly the case today. I am going to bring in a fascinating woman who has the most beautiful hair restoration place in Northwest Houston you have ever seen. From the moment I walked in, I was transformed into this just beautiful place of zen, of relaxation. And I felt like every stressed bone in my body just melted away, which apparently is very good for your health. So without further ado, let's bring her in. Dr. Leola Edipo-O'Shea, welcome. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you, Melissa.
Well, I tell you what, Texas Hair Restoration and Wellness Center is something else. You have come up with a place to transform lives, and it's truly no laughing matter. I mean, there are a lot of things that can bother us in this world, but certainly hair defines men and women. And I know you hear that all the time. And we look at the stats.
They've tried so many things. So often by the time they find me, I'm kind of like the last stop because I'm a trichologist. A lot of time people look for dermatologists. So when they find out about a trichologist, usually they're excited because they're like, there may be help. Because we only specialize in hair, whereas in dermatology, it's like they have 13 children. In trichology, we have just one child, that's the scalp. So they're very happy to just know that there's a holistic way that they can get their hair back. So they feel joy in the end, but man, I mean, I keep Kleenex here. I keep boxes of Kleenex because it can be daunting.
Yeah, it can be. And I think what people need to realize is a lot of times you just think, oh, you picture maybe male pattern baldness, you picture it being genetics and an older man, but that is not the case. Walk us through some of the causes of hair loss.
It's certainly not the case. Even we're seeing younger people now. Post COVID, we're seeing a lot younger
Mhm.
people, but the causes of hair loss can be, some of it is hereditary. Some of it is, if your mom had it, your dad had it, you may be prone to it, but doesn't necessarily mean you have to have it. There are steps you can take preliminarily to thwart it, right? You don't have to. Uh, what are some of the major causes I'm seeing now is stress, because we underestimate stress because it's just one syllable. But man, if the hair could talk, it'd be like, no stress, because stress causes cortisol, right? And the doc can talk about that later, but it just tightens up everything. And when you're dealing with hair loss, you're not trying to tighten up the portals that where the follicles live. Stress, the diet. Oh my God! Now we think about diet, we're thinking about weight loss, but here we test you. We see what your food sensitivities are. See, everyone knows what they're allergic to. Because if you're allergic, you're going to break out and see the symptoms right away. But if you're sensitive to something, you may not know for days. And it's those sensitivities that can cause gut issues. So here we don't guess, we test. So diet, stress, being in situationships that just don't serve you well, the environment, the water, even. It could be a myriad of things. So again, since it can be so many
Mhm.
contributing factors, doing something that's not your life purpose even, right? That's why it's so zen here. Like, what is your purpose? And sometimes you could be doing something that your soul is not in agreement to, and your mind will override it, and you'll say, oh, I can do that, but your body's not in agreement, and it will show up in your hair.
That is just so.
Thank
Tell
you.
us how you found Texas Hair Restoration and Wellness Center.
Basically, I learned about it through, I actually searched for it on Google and the name came up. And I was so excited about it and intrigued. And I came to their clinic and I absolutely loved it. I felt embraced from the moment I came in. Dr. Ani Fauché sat me down, did a consultation, did hair strand analysis, scalp visualization, and pointed out a lot of things to me that I really didn't know about in terms of hair health and how to regrow thinning hair. It was very much a transformation that I was making by coming into their center.
I'm going to show everyone what you're talking about. Okay, so these are your before and after shots.
Yes.
You've got a very dramatic difference going on here. What did you do? What did she help you do to transform yourself?
she helped me kind of attack it from all different angles. I learned about, for example, the fact that I had normal thyroid lab values when I did blood tests, but yet I still could have low thyroid slow effect, meaning that it wasn't really targeting from the cellular level to help my hair growth. She showed me how, you have to kind of think holistically about it. Stress management, doing meditation, guidance with dietary foods and minerals to help replenish the scalp and help the follicles, come back to life. Um, let's see what else. A lot of mineral deficiencies I had, selenium, zinc, just you name it. There were several. And through what her program allowed in terms of mineral health balancing and healing, I've been able to get more hair growth and see really great results.
Is that what you hear a lot when you hear from patients saying, I've seen great results? Is there ever a time you can't help somebody, or is this typically what you see from them?
There are instances where I cannot help someone, like if they have truly advanced hair loss has been going on a very long time. There are instances that they may be a candidate for transplant, but we're able to help at least 75%. We've even been able to get surgical results without surgery. And as it relates to people like Dr. Satterwhite, with her being a medical doctor, she's already run all the tests on herself, all of the blood tests. So I think she was a little surprised that we had other technology that was more holistic, that gave us some readings that we needed to know, like she said, on the cellular level. Because often patients are coming here and say, well, my medical doctor said that my thyroid was okay, but as she said, it was okay for your essential organs, heart, kidney, and liver. But hair is not an essential organ, so the thyroid was underperforming for that function. So here's what I think of the good news about hair loss, and there is some good news. The good news is that hair loss is like a bell horn saying something is off. It's kind of a warning. Do you agree, Doc? It's just like,
Yes.
we can't just be shedding and thinning without something being off in one of the systems. Do you think so, Doc?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's really a sign that helps you realize that overall there may be areas in your health that need attention, in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Exactly.
and you see that
So it's
again.
never a dull moment here, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I bet. Let's bring in another one of your clients. Melissa joins us. Another Melissa. Hello. And I'm going to I'll begin with
Hello.
your photo so that we can get an idea of what you were going
Everybody makes me smile.
through. So we see here, explain first of all, doctor, what you were treating her for and what we're looking at.
So Melissa has locks, and we see a lot of locks. And locks, sometimes they use different oils or anything, but hers was more hormonal hair loss. So a lot of times when you start thinning around the temples, it's hormonal. So we did a microscopic scalp analysis on her to determine what follicles were still alive. And the good news, most of them were alive, but they were compromised. So we're like, we got to get them off of life support, and back to life. And Melissa, she doesn't live in Houston anymore, but she was such a great patient. She and Dr. Satterwhite, because most of it, we only do 50%, but when people show up and be compliant, that makes it much easier. So she showed up with a smile all the time. So it was easier for her, but she has hormonal hair loss.
All right. So Melissa, can you tell us about the treatments that you underwent and how it helped you? She can't hear us. Oh, well, at least we can see the before and afters.
She can't hear.
No, that's okay. Thanks for being here. I'm sorry we can't hear you or she can't hear us. But when we see, we can see the difference in her
Yeah,
hair,
but
though.
she reinforced and shared her story with me this morning. She just reinforced how it just made such a difference with her, and how when she does come to Houston, she makes sure that she'll frequent here. She prayed for a solution, and she was so happy when she found us. So she did discuss that, she was really happy with how her hair has just come back to life.
And that is so interesting. When I interviewed a few of your other clients when I was actually there, they told me the same thing, that they were so desperate that they were actually praying for help. They were praying for answers that led them to you. And that probably says how desperate you see some of these people feeling, that they feel like they need something else to help them out.
Hmm. Well, yeah, it's true. Hair is really a spiritual thing because even in the Bible, it says a woman's hair is her glory. So there's some spirituality in hair, and it's a lot of power in your hair. I mean, you can have on the worst outfit and a great hair day, and the whole day seems to be right. But a lot of times, our hair is just really calling for attention. I have a little program I call personality. Your hair, every woman's hair has its some like when you heard the phrase good hair day. Some
Uh-huh.
days the personality is good that day and others. So we have situations where our hair just needs that special TLC, that deep condition, that scalp detox.
Mhm.
And we're serious about scalp treatments. A scalp treatment can go in there, just recalibrate the scalp, because we see what we call angry scalps. The scalp just isn't moving. So y'all can do it, just move your scalp back and forth. Your forehead, your hair should be moving. If your forehead isn't moving, your scalp is too tight, which is a sign that you're just too stressed out. And you can't be that stressed out because you only have one life.
It is so true. Okay, Melissa logged out and logged back in. So let's see if we can get her
Okay.
back. Can you hear us this time?
Yes, I can hear
There
you.
you are. Oh, thanks for trying again. And sorry, you gotta love technology, right? But we were just talking about how the fact is that so many people were desperate that, like you, they actually prayed for help, and you feel like that led you to the answers you needed. Tell me about that.
I do believe that we have a large spiritual background as far as my family is concerned, and everything is done in prayer and worship. And there is nothing I can physically do that he can't do better. So when I asked the Lord, look, I'm losing my hair. Uh, please show me what you want me to do. Do you want me to go shiny, or do you want me to find someone who can help me get my hair back?
Mhm.
Because while I'm not really ready for that journey, if that is part of it, then I will do it. But I
Mhm.
would rather not have to do the hairless journey yet.
And you did
And
it.
uh, uh, it was sheer. People like to say luck, but
Mhm.
we're all guided in some way,
Mhm.
fashion, or form. And I do believe my hand was guided when I found this particular uh, individual, and they were able to bring me into their building and tell me what was going on with my hair and tell me what they were going to do to help me
And we were
get my
showing
hair
before
back.
and after. Yeah, we were showing
And
before and afters a few minutes ago,
I
Melissa.
actually was skeptical,
Mhm.
but I knew that I was sent here. And I talked to Tam, and she said, just put your faith in me. It's like, well, the Lord told me to come this direction, and this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
So if he told me to come here, apparently you guys are going to do what you're supposed to do to help me
Yeah.
get my hair back. And
Mhm.
like, like in the Bible, the woman's hair is her crown and glory.
Mhm.
So not having my crown withered and tattered is not a testimony.
Yeah.
So he allowed them to do everything they needed to do, which was a lot of stress and
Mhm.
a lot of them being in my head and giving my head the type of love and attention that it needed in order
Mhm.
for it to grow
And Dr. Satterwhite, I saw you
was
shaking
major.
your head. You felt those same emotions that she's talking about,
Yes,
it sounds like,
yes,
right?
yes.
And I was so intrigued at all the different types of treatments, everything from red light therapy to massage. How does all of that
I
make a
lost
difference
hearing again.
to help?
It really helps you kind of focus in on what's important. And that's not just from a hair standpoint, but the the center gives you, you know, the it tells you the need for taking stress out of your life. Meditate, it's going to help all around your body's health. So that the center there really helps you take a step back and look at where you are in life. And on this journey for your hair growth, you're also looking at where your journey is overall.
And I think it's so intriguing that you're also a medical doctor. Have you used the knowledge that you've learned through this hair process to help your own patients with other things of just how important diet is and so many aspects of our life that we don't even realize?
Yes. Talking to them about, the importance of taking care of themselves. I work with patients who are going through a very stressful time. I work with hospice patients, and the amount of stress that they're feeling and, caregiver burden is a very important part of not only the patient, but the family. And I had a patient the other day who was worried about her hair shedding. And even though, she's on hospice and is dealing with a very serious terminal illness, those things still matter, those things. So it's important to recognize that. And as Dr. Anna Frichet said earlier, a good day, a good hair day or a bad hair day can really make your day or break your day. And it's something that in society, it gets a lot of attention, self-acceptance, and, society places an emphasis on often.
And I'm so thankful you brought up the thought about cancer patients, because as a medical reporter, that's one of the toughest things that I see patients go through, especially women. But even my own little boy, when he had cancer, it was devastating for him. And Dr. Leola, I'm interested to see if there's anything that you can do in your specialty to help it grow faster for a cancer patient once they lose it after chemotherapy, or is that whole process about the same for anybody, no matter what they do?
Yeah, we do actually have a special program. We work closely with the chemo's patient's medical doctor, but we have a lot of them, and we do, because the scalp and chemo is very hot, so we have a cooling system. But to backtrack on what she was saying, even though the lady was in hospice, people care about their hair until they're 90. My mother was 93, and she was like, I need my hair combed today. So it's not age related. I mean, the hair is such a phenomenal thing that, we could be feeling bad. It's like, before the people come fix my hair, so whether it's cancer, hospice, or wherever, we meet people where they are. From all professions, races, sexes. If you come in here, we're dealing with the individual, and we're going to test you. We're going to get to the bottom of it. That's why they call me the hair loss detective. We solve the mystery of hair loss one strand at a time. We're going to get to the bottom of the culprit. Something is causing this. If it were cancer, then we're going to cool that scalp. The scalp, we don't want an angry scalp. You don't want that, right? So, ladies, gentlemen, make that scalp happy. So, yeah.
All right. Now tell us where we can find you. Tell us where your office is and how we find you.
We're at 290 in Hollister in Houston, Texas, but I service people all over the country, actually. I'm a product manufacturer. I also put my products in HEB, Sam's, Walmart. So I deal with people basically across the nation, but as far as Houston is concerned, we're right here at 13201 Northwest Freeway in Houston, 290 in Hollister. We have a nice large center at 19 doors, plenty of staff, and we give you healthy popcorn and vegan soup.
And it's delish. I got to do a taste test while I was there. Ladies, thank you so much for all
Texas.
joining me.
That's what Texans do. You don't visit a Texan without getting something to eat.
Exactly. Well, we're giving you a thumbs up for all that you're doing and making a difference in not only these 2 lives, but so many thousands of others. Ladies, thanks for being here with me for Lunch for the Soul. Such an honor to meet all of you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you.
Thank you again so very much. All right. Appreciate you. And everyone, you know where to find her. Thanks again. All right. And I just want to remind you, you can always join us here Wednesdays for Lunch for the Soul. If you happen to join us late, you can always go to our Fox 26 YouTube page. That's where you can find all of my Lunch for the Souls. Until then, I hope to see you back next week, same place, same time. Have a beautiful day.
to pay heed to the potential repercussions to peace and security. The countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council insist on the importance of the immediate cessation of fire and for the enabling of immediate access for relief teams to the Gaza Strip. We need to take a decisive position against famine, water shortages, cutting off water and power, this which is used as a weapon of war. We would allow you to stand on the side of would ask you to stand on the side of international law, to ask for the lifting of the siege on the Gaza Strip, open crossing points, allow humanitarian workers and UN workers, particularly UNRWA, to have access. What are we expecting as the international community? What are we expecting to act, far from double standards, from selectivity? Are we just waiting for more massacres, more torture? What are we waiting for? The measures that we need to take will be immortalized in this room, in history. And we would like to draw your attention to the fact that overlooking the path of reason and justice will not lend itself to the credibility of this council and will never mean that we are able to ensure stability within the Middle East. Indeed, the contrary will be true. We call on you to apply international law. Prove to us that there are no states that are above the law, even if this state is Israel. We ask you to send a clear message, a loud, clear, direct message, citing the inevitable nature of peace for all parties. By way of conclusion, I would like to refer to the emergency meeting in Muscat, at the capital of Oman, the ministerial meeting that was held yesterday to discuss the developments in occupied Palestinian territories. And I would like to refer to the communique calling for the stop of the escalation, respect for international law, protection of civilians, confirming the importance to bring an end to the illegal Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories, as well as the establishment of an independent Palestinian within the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. The communique called on the international community to take immediate, effective steps to ensure that this becomes a reality pursuant to international law, and urge the international community to support the resilience of the Palestinian people on its land, while warning off any attempt to displace this people from its territory, and to guarantee a comprehensive solution under international law and the Arab Peace Initiative and the Security Council and General Assembly resolutions. We also asked for collective opposition to any attempt for the displacement of this crisis that has been worsened to neighboring countries. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of Oman for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Libya.
security. It is now engaged in a political competition. We regret that the Council was unable to adopt any resolution to put an end to this dangerous situation, because some states have been listening to silence, but actually they don't want to continue hearing the cries of women and innocent children in the Gaza Strip. They're being murdered, bombarded, besieged. They're seeing electricity cuts. They're not being furnished with humanitarian assistance. And they're also now being forcibly displaced. There are attempts to do this. These are war crimes, crimes against humanity. There are various attempts which are being taken to punish an entire people. Where is international law? Where is the international law? Libya had comments which it wanted to make on the resolutions tabled by the various members, by Russia, by Brazil. However, if we are to take serious steps within the Council, if we were to do this, if we had we adopted the Russian resolution 2 days ago, maybe we would have saved lives, the lives of children, the lives of innocent civilians who were put to death yesterday in the Baptist hospital. The unfortunate events unfolding before us are the logical product of a policy of racial discrimination being waged as part of the occupation of the Palestinian people. This policy denies them all of their rights as enshrined in international law and relevant resolutions. The same goes for the attacks on holy sites in Palestinian territory. The bloodbath has been happening for decades. Thousands of civilians have perished. This must end. Killing civilians, killing unarmed persons, this is something that is rejected and condemned under all international laws. The double standards policy, which has been adopted by many countries, especially the Western countries, must stop. You cannot be both judge and jury. You cannot boil the Palestinian issue down to what happened on the 7th of October. You have to see the broader context, the injustice, the colonization policies, the colonial policies which put to death the dream for peace. Over the last 75 years, colonies were planted in the occupied territories, and the international community knew full well about these. The unfair siege on this Gaza Strip. Well, the Gaza Strip became an open-air prison, the biggest prison in all humanity. Fair and lasting peace for the Palestinians is the only way to uphold international peace, security, and stability for the entire region and its people. We'd like to reiterate once again that we support the Palestinian people in their fight for resistance so that they can live in their territory. We abhor all territories, abhor all attempts to take action outside the territory, especially the pressure that it is being exerted. We do not want another Nakba. Israel expressed its unwavering unified position vis-à-vis the Palestinian cause. This is an issue which the Libyan people believe to be a cause for the entire nation. We see no solution aside from justice and the enjoyment of their rights by the Palestinian people with a Palestinian state with Jerusalem, East Jerusalem as its capital. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Libya for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Tunisia.
Thank you, Mr. President. We align ourselves with the statement of Jordan on behalf of the Arab group. I would like to thank Mr. Tor Wensland and Martin Griffiths for their briefings. Also, we express our wholehearted condolences to the fraternal Palestinian people in the aftermath of the brutal aggression perpetrated by the occupying forces, which violated all international instruments. This is a new link in a chain of atrocities and massacres that are perpetrated every single day against the Palestinian people. amidst a deafening silence of the international community, the occupation forces perpetrated an atrocious and heinous crime by bombarding the National Baptist Hospital. This is a barbaric carnage that claimed the lives of hundreds of innocent civilians, including women, children, medical and paramedical personnel. We do stress again that this is yet another example of the contempt by the occupying power of all international and humanitarian instruments. Tunisia expresses its condemnation in the strongest terms of this cowardly aggression against Palestinian civilians, and we call for putting an end to impunity in the case of war crimes and genocide, those crimes that are assiduously and presumptuously perpetrated by Israel against the Palestinian people. We call upon all the countries of the international community to shoulder their moral and legal responsibility to put an end to the policies of aggression and to...
All right, you're just listening in there to officials from the UN Security Council in New York City. I'm Andy Mack here on Live Now from Fox. Of course, we're going to get back into that momentarily, but I do see out of Washington, D.C. right here, Standing with Israel rally at an event there on Capitol Hill with several senators. Let's listen into this on Live Now from Fox.
I will either answer it or designate to someone, or you may choose a senator to ask questions to. So with that, I will open by telling you that the people of Israel have suffered a terrorist attack that many are equating to our own September 11th. Mass gunmen, entire families in their homes, massacred babies and the elderly, and dragged hostages across the border into Gaza. We saw a lot of it in the film, on TV, and otherwise. These attacks are premeditated, brutal, and horrific, and will long live in the memory of those of us who support the Israeli people. Our message to the Israeli people is clear. We stand with you, and we will do all that we can to ensure you can rebuild, defend your land and people, and ensure that Hamas can never, ever do something like this again. This is different than the previous incursions. Almost immediately after the attacks, we saw misguided and dangerous calls for a ceasefire and mediation. These harmful messages failed to recognize Israel's legitimate right to protect its people. You can't mediate with terror organizations. You have to go to the source and eliminate it, which I know the Israelis are working to do. They do war like we do war, not like terrorists do war, and they are very sensitive to damage to civilians. Hamas is merely an arm of the Iranian regime. Iran pulled the trigger on October 7th, and there are other Iranian proxies in the region that have long sought to pursue the type of attack and carnage that we saw that day. These people hate Israel and the Jewish people, but they also hate the United States of America and the American people. The administration can no longer wish away the Iranian threat or attempt to appease the Iranians as they have. The attacks in Israel and recurring attacks against our partners, troops, and diplomats are proof of a failed Iran policy. And we must change course quickly before more damage is done by the Iranian regime. With that, I want to recognize Senator Wicker for a few remarks.
Thank you, Senator Risch, and we'll all be brief because I know you may have questions. Let's make this very clear. Hamas does not want the people of Gaza to live side by side with their Israeli fellow humans in peace. That is not the goal of Hamas. The stated written goal in black and white of the Hamas charter is the destruction of the Jewish race and the complete removal off the face of the map of the Israeli state. That is what Hamas wants. We stand for what Israel has stood for now for 7.5 decades, a place where finally the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob can live in a place where they're safe and peaceful alongside people of different ethnic origins, just as people all the way around the world are asked to do. Hamas's goal is the removal and death of every Israeli and every Jew. Let's remember that. And let's remember two things. They are the client state of the Islamic government in Iran. And until we realize that, until our federal policy is toughness, American strength, peace through strength, with regard to the people of Iran and the Islamic leaders of Iran, we will not have peace in the Middle East. So we stand with our friends. We reject the false narrative that has entered the minds of so-called educated people over the last decade, 2 decades, that somehow the Israeli people are at fault in this regard. The terrorists are Hamas. The terrorists are their brothers and sisters in arms, Hezbollah, and other Islamic terrorist groups. The terrorist attack was visited upon the innocent civilians of Israel. We stand with them, and Republicans, Democrats, and independents, House and Senate, will be standing forward today to make it clear that the United States of America stands with the nation of Israel.
Thank you. Senator Barrasso.
Well, you heard it. America stands with Israel. They're under attack by purely evil Hamas terrorists. Thousands are dead, including Americans. The atrocities are horrific. Israel's taking action right now to defend itself and its people. America cannot let Israel stand alone. That means getting Israel the weapons and the military assistance that they need: Iron Dome interceptors, precision-guided missiles, protective equipment, and intelligence support. We're committed to ensuring that Israel can fight against all terrorist threats and protect their people. This morning, we had the opportunity in the Foreign Relations Committee to question Jack Lew, who is President Biden's nominee to be the ambassador to Israel from the United States. Now, don't forget, Jack Lew, he negotiated Obama's terrible Iran deal. As Secretary of Treasury, he sent pallets of cash to Iran. Under the lenient Biden administration, Iran has been able to export $80 billion worth of oil. We sold much of it to China. At the same time, the administration strangles American oil and gas production. This administration's appeasement strategy towards Iran has enabled Iran to fund Hamas and Hezbollah in their attacks on Israel. And I say all of this because Jack Lew is part of the problem, and as a result, I oppose his nomination. We have a capable charge d'affaires who is right at the embassy right now. Stephanie Hallett is a professional foreign service agent, officer, spent an entire career in the region, knows the people, knows the region. The president should nominate her to be ambassador. She could be confirmed quickly. America supports the support for Israel is unwavering. The message needs to be clear from the president, from his ambassador, and from the people, all of us serving in Congress today.
Thank you. Senator Ernst.
Thank you, Senator Risch. And I just returned a number of days ago from a bipartisan delegation that I led to the Middle East. And there should be no question that the United States will stand and does stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel. We know that Iran is behind this extreme terrorism, and it has been fueled and funded by Biden's appeasement strategy in the Middle East. Just as my colleagues have outlined, we have seen $80 billion that has gone into the pockets of Iran. And Iran continues to fund all of these terrorist proxies. 93% of the funding that goes to Hamas comes from Iran. 100% of the funding that goes to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad comes from Iran. Iran also funds Hezbollah and the Houthis. So we see a trend in the chaotic Middle East. I'm holding the Biden administration accountable to actually enforce the laws that are on the books. We have sanctions against Iran. They must be enforced. We need to take away the money that is going into the hands of Iran, which fuels these terrorist proxies through the region. They are savages, and we have seen what they have done to our friends in Israel. To support Israel, we must defund these terrorists who perpetuated this heinous attack against Israel.
Thank you. Senator Hagerty.
Thank you. My colleagues have done a good job of pointing the finger to the true culprit here. It's unfortunate that President Joe Biden will not do so. He's in Israel. None of his remarks pointed to the fact that Iran is behind this, the world's greatest sponsor of terror. If you look at what happened during the Trump administration, we imposed a maximum pressure campaign on Iran. We brought the flow of funds to Iran down to a trickle. What happened? In 2021, Joe Biden was confirmed to be president. Joe Biden then implemented a new policy toward Iran, a policy of appeasement, setting aside the maximum pressure campaign of President Trump. And what we've seen then is a dramatic ramp up of revenues. Joe Biden put in place a special envoy, Robert Malley. Robert Malley has now had his security clearance stripped. He's been dismissed from the State Department, and he is under federal investigation. This is the person that was in charge of negotiating with Iran. This was the person that was in charge of the non-enforcement of sanctions. This was the person that oversaw the Biden administration's failure to enforce the sanctions that so greatly enriched Iran. If you look back to the Trump administration, by 2020, we had reduced Iran's revenues to below $8 billion. It was widely reported in the media that both Hezbollah and Hamas were going broke. Once Joe Biden comes into office, once Rob Malley takes his post, we see the Iranian regime enriched beyond comprehension. We see the violence coming from Gaza in 2021 in the 11-day war against Israel. And now we've seen the most horrific act yet. Iran's fingerprints are all over this. The Biden administration needs to wake up and accept responsibility in this policy of appeasement and bring civility back to the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Risch. I think you're going to see a common theme here, but I want to emphasize what Senator Hagerty just mentioned. Appeasement and accommodation of Iran, which has been the policies of the Obama administration and the Biden administration, has been a failure and hugely destabilizing throughout the Middle East. This policy has demoralized our allies, not just the Israelis, but the Gulf Arab states, Egypt. It has emboldened Iran. It has put billions of dollars in the coffers of terrorist proxies. And it has put the lives of Americans and our allies, like Israel, at extreme risk, and it has shattered deterrence. All you have to do is look at what's going on in the region right now. As Senator Hagerty mentioned, the Trump administration did something that's really hard to do. It reestablished deterrence in the region with regard to Iran. How did it do this? Maximum pressure campaign in terms of oil, but other areas like ballistic missiles. It launched a peace process with regard to the Abraham Accords and normalization with Israel, which Iran hated. And of course, it was not afraid to take out terrorist leaders like Soleimani, which the previous administration did. As is already mentioned, the Biden administration on day one moved to loosen and reverse this tough strategy against Iran. What has it gotten us? We're seeing what it's gotten us. And think about this. It's not just this $6 billion ransom that they were negotiating. Literally, as the Iranians and Hezbollah and Hamas were planning the biggest slaughter of the Jewish people since the Holocaust, it is the oil that's been put on international markets. It's foreign currency reserves. At the end of the Trump administration, Iran had $4 billion in foreign currency reserves. They now have 80. So this policy, if there's one thing that's going to come out of this, it has to happen now. The Biden administration's appeasement policy of Iran has to stop.
All right, you're just listening in there to some senators, and I want to slide away from this before they get to questions, because that will be a very interesting part. We'll take you right back out to Washington, D.C. I do want to give you a few Live Now looks, including out of New York City here on Live Now from Fox, a pro-Palestine rally there in Midtown Manhattan. Of course, you can see people on hand with flags and signs as well. Certainly different events and rallies around the country involving that. I do want to take you overseas as well. Gaza, this is a live look, a very dark shot, but that is a live shot right there in Gaza. Of course, following this continued war in Israel, day number 12. And of course, we're learning more today about Israel as they'll allow Egypt to deliver limited quantities of humanitarian aid to Gaza after that visit from President Joe Biden. All right, I'm Andy Mack here on Live Now from Fox. Let's slide away for a quick 2-minute break. All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, a couple of live pictures there, one out of New York City at the UN Security Council. Also, a new statement there from the National Security Council spokesperson talking about that blast at the hospital last night, killing nearly 500 people, saying that while we continue to collect information, our current assessment based on analysis of the overhead imagery, intercepts, and open source information is that Israel is not responsible for the explosion at the hospital in Gaza yesterday. So that is potentially some big news as well. Let's take you right back out to Washington, D.C. as senators there make some remarks on standing with Israel. Let's listen in here on Live Now from Fox.
She said kids watch their parents be shot and they've been kidnapped into Gaza. She said she's seen the pictures of babies mutilated from her village. She'll never be able to go back to her village. She's lost everything. So we're only up here talking because Iran-backed Hamas did all this, because they hate Jews. They hate Jews, they hate Israel, they hate America, they hate Americans. That's why we're here. 31 Americans are dead. We don't know how many Americans are held hostage. 1,400 Israeli Americans and Europeans are dead. They're dead. I want to make sure Iran gets held accountable and Hamas gets held accountable. Hamas needs to be destroyed. Every member of Hamas needs to be murdered, killed. They need to be dead, what they did. So, as you've heard, we have a president that appeases Iran. So if you look at some of the pictures and some of the videos about the attack, what they have? They had humanitarian aid, first aid kits that Hamas is using. If If you look at Israeli TV, you see a whole bunch of pictures of rice bags with bullets in it to go to Hamas. But so this is our money going to Hamas. That's exactly what it is. So today, President Biden announced $100 million more money to aid for Gaza and the West Bank. That's our money. You go, well, they're holding Americans. They're holding Americans, and we're going to give them money. I mean, would you do that? Who would do that? Who would give someone, they're holding your family hostage, they've killed your family, and we give them money? This is crazy. So I've got a bill. I'm going to do a UC this afternoon, Stop Taxpayer Funding the Hamas Act. It's going to stop this. And I wish we had a president that understood this appeasement doesn't work and started talking about the 31 Americans that died and the unbelievable number of Americans that are still being held hostage. What in the hell is he doing to get them back? Why would we spend a minute of our time and clearly none of our money to figure out how to get more aid to Gaza to help terrorists? This makes no sense.
Thank you. Senator Marshall.
Thank you. Over the last several days, as I've contemplated the next weeks and months that lie ahead of us, and yes, it's going to be weeks or months, I'm reminded of the words of my boyhood hero, the 34th President of the United States, when President Eisenhower talked about war. Ike said that I hate war as only a soldier who's lived it can, as one who's seen its brutality, its futility, and its stupidity. I just want to warn Americans that when this war and this invasion of the Gaza Strip starts, it's not going to be pretty. There are no good photos that are going to come out of this war. But what Americans need to remember, that the blood they're seeing belongs on the hands of Iran and Hamas. They're the ones that have caused this. These are the ones that are hiding behind innocent women and children. As we go forward, what we need to see out of the White House is a very clear vision, a very clear mission. Number one, we need to be focused on getting American hostages and citizens back safely. And every day this president wastes, we have hostages that are being beaten by terrorists from Hamas. Next, number two, we need to cut the head off the snake, and Iran is the snake, and let all the puppets, all the terrorist organizations know, if they engage, that there will indeed be hell to pay. And lastly, Israel needs to know that we will stand beside you no matter, not if, but what. We will stand beside you no matter what. That as these days get tougher and we see death and destruction, that we're going to stand beside you knowing that the blood being shed belongs on the hands of Iran and Hamas. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Ricketts.
I want to reiterate what my colleagues have already said. We stand with Israel. We must continue to stand alongside them as they take on this war to destroy Hamas. Hamas has committed unspeakable acts of terror that have already been described. And Israel has not only the right, but the responsibility to defend itself. And we need to make sure Israel has the resources to do that. We also need to make sure that we know that this was brought upon Hamas by their actions. And when we talk about responsibility, should any harm fall to any American hostages in Gaza, that is solely on the responsibility of Hamas. They are the ones that took the hostages. Any harm that comes to Americans that they are holding, that's on them. We need to remember that. And again, these calls to de-escalate or for a ceasefire, those are foolishness. This war has to be prosecuted till Hamas is destroyed. And we should not provide any resources to Hamas or Gaza until that is done. We didn't rebuild Europe until after Nazi Germany had been defeated. And that is the way this should be done now. You don't provide your enemies resources. So the president's humanitarian aid, again, is misguided. We need to make sure that Israel has the resources to win this war. We cannot be supplying the enemy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Hyde-Smith.
Thank you. I have on my Jerusalem cross today. I put it on early morning of October the 7th. The most important thing we can do is pray for Israel and the people of Israel, but we've got to put feet to those prayers. We cannot stop there. We've got to take action. It is amazing of the capabilities that the United States has when we go in to defend. I'm afraid that Hamas has taken advantage because they've been emboldened by President Biden's weak policies. In Afghanistan, the decision to unfreeze $6 billion of Iranian oil revenue. I will support those policies that shore up Israel's security. And as Senator Katie Britt said yesterday, we've got to look evil in the eye and take it out. As the Jewish state works to secure its borders, we need to be securing our own borders. With the destruction that has happened in Israel, our thoughts have to be on protecting our country, but to help Israel protect the state of Israel. Again, my prayers are with Israelis, the state of Israel, and I ask the American people to pray with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Langford.
So 50 years after the Yom Kippur War, and right at the moment when all of the normalization conversation was happening between Saudi Arabia and Israel is at its peak, that's when Hamas decides to attack. Literally, we have the Abraham Accords moving now with Morocco, with UAE, and Bahrain. Continued engagement there, normalization in the region, and Hamas determines that this is against their self-interests, and they literally slaughter 1,400 individuals to try to deter all of that dialogue. We not only stand with Israel, but we stand with the civilized world that would say this kind of brutality, simply because someone is Jewish, is not only heinous and horrible, but should be deplorable to everyone in the world, regardless of your faith, background, community, or country that you're from. We're speaking out not only for Israel and its right to be able to defend themselves, but we're also speaking out for truth and for facts. 24 hours ago, a hospital was hit in Gaza. Around 500 civilians lost their lives senselessly, and immediately Hamas and nations around the region announced that it was Israel as an airstrike that killed all those individuals. The meetings with Biden were canceled because of that. But now as the facts come out, and as we've been able to note and to be able to show authoritatively, that was actually a misguided rocket shot from inside Gaza towards civilians in Israel that actually hit civilians in Gaza. That was not an Israeli airstrike. I would call on all of the nations around the world that called out Israel for that strike to immediately change their statement and to be able to call out Hamas for that strike against that hospital, and to be able to let their own people know this is what is happening with these heinous acts of terrorism and with the violence that Hamas is actually bringing. And one last comment. While we're saddened and grieved and overwhelmed by 31 Americans that have died and 1,400 Israelis and countless number of civilians in the area, we also should be keenly aware that 9/11 occurred with 20 individuals in the United States that were illegally present in the United States that we did not account for, and they carried out those heinous acts of terrorism here. In the past 2 years, on our southern border, 70,000 individuals have crossed and been released into our country that were identified by DHS as what they call special interest aliens. These are high-risk individuals coming from Iran, from Iraq, from Syria and other nations. They've crossed our southern border and been released into the United States, awaiting their hearing. We have no idea where they are. 70,000. These are individuals that came between the ports of entry and got into our country even after their identification as a special interest alien.
All right, you're just listening in there to some senators on a Stand with Israel event in Washington, D.C. Some of you are going to see a quick 2-minute break.
Alongside our ally Israel, but we should take seriously the lessons that should have been learned from 9/11 for our own.
Them recover from these vicious attacks by Hamas, who is backed by Iran. The United States and Israel have long partnered and have a special relationship. We share intelligence with the Israelis on terrorism that happens in the Middle East, and that must continue. That must continue because it's vital to protect our country as well. This is not just an Israeli problem. This is not just an attack on Israel. This is an attack on America. This is an attack on the civilized world. We need to stand with Israel, and we need to be clear in our message that we do, and we are there to provide them with what they need so that they can fight the fight that has to happen.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Cornyn.
In the days following this terrorist attack on Israel, I met with two women at the Temple Emmanuel in Dallas, Texas, a synagogue, where Kim told me about her two sons, both of whom were born in Dallas, American citizens, Texans, but who are now fighting with the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. And she was terrified in her own right, wondering whether they would be safe or whether they would be killed as a result of their military service. Another woman was a teacher at a kibbutz who said that who'd recently moved to Dallas. She recounted her phone just buzzing constantly with messages from people who were being attacked by Hamas as those attacks took place. And you can imagine her emotions, her fear, as a result of not being able to do anything about it, but knowing that her friends and loved ones were being murdered as those messages were being read. I think the administration is reaping what it sows. What I mean by that is Ronald Reagan famously said, peace is through strength. If Iran and Hamas had been afraid of what the response would be, they never would have made the attack in the first place. But please remember, Iran has killed Americans over the last 3 decades in Iraq by providing explosively formed penetrators, by sponsoring Hamas and Hezbollah, which, as you know, are terrorist organizations designated by the United States government. Iran provides them $100 million a year. So this idea that Iran doesn't know or wasn't complicit in this attack is completely implausible, unbelievable. And here's the worst part. The Biden administration continues to appease the Iranian regime, which, as we know, has been under sanctions by the United States government as part of this maximum pressure campaign to get them, to discourage them from developing nuclear weapons. Well, the Biden administration has stood by as the regime has continued to enrich uranium, getting closer and closer to that day it will have a nuclear weapon, just as they've not enforced the sanctions which have allowed the regime to reap the economic rewards of selling its oil on the open market. So, as horrible as this is, it is horrible. It's absolutely critical that the administration change course, quit its appeasement, quit trying to play nice when it comes to people who you can't reason with. And I'm not just talking about Hamas. I'm talking about the regime in Iran that is the puppet master for what Hamas did against innocent civilians on October the 7th.
Thank you, Senator. Well, thank you all for sticking it out as you have. To put a fine point on this, the Foreign Relations Committee put out a resolution in support of Israel, and that resolution has 99 sponsors and co-sponsors of the resolution. So in this town of polarity, if you would, we've come together as a Senate to support Israel. So with that, I will, looks like I will be taking questions. He had his hand up first. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Senator. On Iran, the Biden administration has said, obviously, Iran does back Hamas quite a bit, but the Biden administration has said there's no smoking gun, and Israeli intelligence sources, unless I'm mistaken, have said similar things, that Iran did not necessarily direct the attack. So I'm wondering if you're concerned about a broader escalation and getting the U.S. roped into another Middle East war. And I know Chairman McCall on the House side is drafting an AUMF for Iran-backed proxies. I was wondering if I could get your thoughts on that as well.
First of all, as to Iran's part in this, look, I've been on the Intelligence Committee and Foreign Relations Committee for 15 years. If I heard nothing else about this other than what happened, I would say that the circumstantial evidence was overwhelming that Iran did this. Without Iran, the terrorist organizations are impotent. They can do nothing. They don't have money. They don't have the intelligence. They don't have anything to do it. So Hamas would be nothing without Iran. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal, I believe, with people of direct evidence of people who said they were at the table, heard the planning, gave the dates, the times, the places, and everything else. What the administration has said is they have no information to corroborate that. What the administration ought to be saying is, we have no evidence to contradict what these people are saying. That's the way you do it in a court of law.